Thank you for staying with us. Insecurity has become a major challenge affecting the lives of many Nigerians over the years. The incessant security threats have also been a setback in attaining social and economic stability. In addressing this issue, President Bola Tinubu has asked all security chiefs in the nation to ensure a conclusive victory against countless security threats bedeviling the country. While addressing the security chiefs and heads of intelligence agencies at a presidential security briefing, President Tinubu said while good progress is being made with the elimination of some security threats across multiple theaters, success will ultimately be defined by a conclusion to the multidimensional menace. Well, joining us to discuss more on this from our Abuja studio is a security consultant, Commodore Abimbola Ayuba. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Ibrahim. Good morning, Nigerians. Happy New Year.
Same to you. Well, we also have Director General Tinubu Shatima Vanguard and Pioneer MD CEO, Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, NIGCOMSAT, Engineer Timasaniyu Ahmed Rufai. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Right. Let me begin with you, Commodore Ayuba. When you look at the marching orders given by the president, some would say this is not the first time he has been talking about ending, giving these marching orders and addressing security issues. He even said that he doesn't joke with the security report he gets and how critical it is that we must address this matter of insecurity because of the various developments his administration is looking to achieve. When you analyze his statement with what the results that we have gotten, how far have we come?
Well, thank you very much, Veronica. The President Tinubu is right on top of his game as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, because each time it implies that he is reading the battle, and from time to time he is being briefed, and he understands where we are, where he wants to be, and that's being weighed against the vision of the government to create a $1 trillion economy by the end of 2024. It's of great concern that he calls his security and intelligence chiefs together to evaluate and also read to them his intent. As a commander-in-chief, he needs to read to them his intent, and in clear terms too, and that he has done, and there's no ambiguity as to what he has told. The killer details or the details are not made in the public domain, but I am sure that the services chiefs have already been given their task for the year. And I want to see that they are able to achieve that, so that the vision to restore hope, the mantra to restore hope for Nigerians will be attainable in a quick time.
Right, let me take my question to Engineer Ahmed Rufai. The security situation in Nigeria, seems to have assumed a multidimensional level. Talk about banditry, insurgency, secessionist, robbery, cattle rustling, etc. Does it appear that our security architecture is somewhat, overwhelmed by this menace?
Thank you very much. We cannot say that they are overwhelmed because it's under control up till this moment. It's just that it has not been eradicated completely. If you look at the situation we were in before, particularly 2012, 2013, 2014, where bombs were being blown all over the country, both in government agencies and in places of worship. Compared to what it is now, you will know that there is a lot of improvement. Also, at some point in time, some flags were hosted, particularly in the northeastern Nigeria, and some territories were declared, as theirs. All those have been overcome. But there is a new dimension with respect to banditry that we mentioned, which is still an offshoot of the former Boko Haram. Most of their members dispersed, moved to other areas, and of course there are a lot of foreign operators in this respect, and they started the art of banditry. Of course, the armed robbers too, not being able to rob along the highway, also now took to kidnapping, because people are not moving with cash, too much cash, any longer. You can easily transfer and go to your destination and take the money. So they turn to now abducting people and asking for ransom. So when you look at all this, the security agencies are very much on top of it. The only issues are the fact that there are some fundamental factors limiting them, giving them some limitations. And one will be with respect to the numbers. I believe that Nigeria is highly under-policed. If you look at the index of United Nations, a policeman to 200 people, if you take that, you will understand that we are highly, highly under-policed. There are issues that bother us on intelligence gathering too, because in most cases we are reactive rather than being able to preempt, the occurrences of these incidents. So if one or two of these measures are taken, I'm sure we'll be able to curb it to the barest minimum. And I'm hoping and looking forward to the promise of the president that is going to recruit about 1 million foots, of police and the security agencies. Because the key issue is we know where their abode is. They live in the bush, they hide in the bush, and when they take people, they take them into the bush. So I think one of the strategies will be to occupy, ungoverned areas and prevent them from using them as abode, to carry out their criminal activities.
Let me stay with you, Engineer Timasaniyu. You chuckled when you spoke about the president recruiting about 1,000 recruits. I'm wondering why you chuckled. Are you saying that the president will not be able to achieve that? Is that what your chuckle means? Perhaps you might want to expatiate on why you chuckled.
No, I expect that we need about 1 million men more, in the security architecture of the country. Why? Because if you want to tackle banditry, there are other aspects of security operations, that are still there. It's not only banditry that we are facing. We also have issues with respect to vandalization, of economic infrastructures. The pipeline vandalization is also a major issue, and the NNPC, projected that we're losing close to about 300 to 400,000 barrels per stream day, almost 1/3 of what will have been a national revenue. So I expect that we get in about 1 million people. What it does is that, number one, you are able to create employment, for our youths, particularly the graduates. And you can, if we have 37 states, that comes to about 30,000 men across per state. And if you talk about 20 to 30 local government per state average, that means that we can have at least 1,500 thereabout per local government. And these people are well trained and armed. So they can police the entire corridor of any local government in and out. Plus the appropriate communication intelligence, they will be able to see the movement of people inside and outside the bush. Because mind you, these guys that are living off town, they have logistics. They still drink water, they still eat food, they smoke their cigarettes, they take their drugs, because most of these security issues, goes pari passu with drug addiction. So most of them are high, before they carry out these activities. So somebody is supplying them all these things. And there are bush roads. There are bush roads. I'm into mining, so I can tell you that there are roads in the bush. So this has been coming before we started building the highways. Our forefathers used all these roads. So they can all be condoned, at the appropriate strategic points and prevent their movement, across the bush. So if we're able to do this, I think we should improve the security greatly, and consequently, all the other things that comes up on it. For instance, our food production. Most of the issues now that borders on high cost of food is because...
Engineer Ahmed Rufai, sorry to pause in Engineer Ahmed Rufai. I'm actually fascinated with, how you chuckle in between your thoughts. But then I would like to take this question to Commodore Ayuba. The president, while meeting with his service chiefs, said he understood the fact that he's happy with the level of coordination among them and the successes they've recorded, and them, although there was the avoidable error or errors which was witnessed recently in Kaduna, which is described as unacceptable and repeated. But the question I want to ask is, how do you see all of these, security agencies, our architecture? Do you feel that the coordination, as mentioned by the president, is being seen and felt in the way they carry out their duties against the insurgents?
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. There's no gainsaying that since the assumption of office of this present administration, the security architecture has been rejigged. And of course, that is holding sway, with National Security Advisor being a very experienced Nigerian, is able to coordinate the affairs of the services along with intelligence architecture. And of course, you will notice that where we have made a lot of gains, as has been earlier mentioned by the engineer, that you will see that the issues of radic bombing of soft targets have reduced considerably. And of course, what we are experiencing now is the fact that there's been a handshake between terrorist organizations and the so-called bandits, and they are manifesting terror in all these ramifications. And even society itself is beginning to, in response to protecting themselves, are beginning to also carry out acts of terrorism in their bid to protect themselves. You could see the case of women going to burn the palace of a traditional ruler. It's a pure act of terrorism, no matter what, and it's illegal. How do you expect the army, for instance, or the police to look into such things which are community-based and community-infested? And that leaves us with the thought that there is need for us to revisit the issue of community policing, and also encourage community leaders, traditional rulers, to and in fact train and arm some of their elements to at least provide that first layer of response, give them that particular training in early warning system and reporting, and of course let them be able to design or create safe havens for themselves in the event of attacks. So that is likely to reduce the number of casualties that we are facing. And I believe so far, the military and intelligence services are doing very well. There's been a lot of improvement in intelligence sharing. But you see, it is just too early in the day to really assess all these efforts, because they are all coming into play gradually. We are beginning to see equipments arriving. More recently, we will see that there was a publication that the Turkish government was going to provide some very robust vehicles for patrolling the Abuja-Kaduna highway that is highly equipped with surveillance gadgets that are expected to quell and put to an end all these issues of kidnapping on that road. Of course, recently the Minister of Defense Nigeria was gifted 2 unmanned ships, vehicles. This is a breakthrough in our history of our security architecture, to have vessels, ships that are not manned by any personnel. When those ones come into play, the issue of pipeline vandalism, oil theft, are expected to be nipped in the bud, because these kind of vehicles too are also armed, and they can be remotely operated from their control positions. So let's give the administration, at least it's 1 year anniversary, for us to fairly assess where we are coming from. We are halfway into it, and it's too early in the day to really say that this is where we are. But we are having an ahead motion on the issue of security at the moment.
Okay, let me stay with you, Commodore, talking about, because you mentioned something about protecting themselves with regards to what we saw happen in Plateau State, the reaction of people and all of it. There has been calls by a cross-section of Nigerians asking that Nigerians should be allowed to bear arms. And I'm wondering if you agree with that notion, talking about Nigerians should start looking at defending themselves, because they believe that the security personnel, security has seemingly overwhelmed them, so to speak. And I'm wondering where you stand with regards to this matter of people protecting themselves or communities looking at measures to protect themselves against the activities of these persons.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Even in the United States, it's not every state that encourages gun ownership. And therefore, in Nigeria, where we still have a lot of fragilities, especially in our religious, ethnic perceptions, it is to be dangerous to allow arms to be kept in every hand. But I also, within the scope of community policing, I have been an advocate that, look, communities should be able to minimally protect themselves, relate with the police, and of course, be part of the security architecture as it's developing. Because, and of course, you must consider also giving the traditional rulers the role, because even in our traditional systems, historically, every traditional empire or emirate or chiefdom have its chief of security, local chief of security, who knows the forest, knows all the local inroads, trade routes that have been historical, as have been mentioned earlier. And this will encourage them to at least nip in the bud, because these people that foment this trouble, they try to embed themselves with the society. Sometimes when they do, you don't know their initial aim. So the other issue is the issue of the Firearms Act, which I've mentioned severally on this show, that this Firearms Act is obsolete. The Firearms Act of 1959, a year before independence, is still sustaining. And in view of the changing global security environment, there's need for the National Assembly to look at this critically and be able to now create new conditions for gun ownership. Because I don't think any bandit or any terrorist wants to die when it goes out on operation. They want to win. But when they are sure that they don't have combat superiority, they are going to have a rethink. And they are going to either delay their operation or try not to go into that particular community. This is what we are saying. We need to unbundle security further to the locals, the people who own the community, who also know where the shoe is pinching them. How we go about that requires a new thinking and a new dialogue, so that we will make sure that guns are only kept in the hands of those who know how to use it, who are trained to use them, and of course, who can be made accountable for the usage of such firearms. Thank you.
Interesting. Engineer Timasaniyu, well, it's in the news this morning where Anyako blames killings on non-prosecution of perpetrators. Of course, we've seen several people who had been arrested, these recent Plateau killings, where it was said that the Nigerian army, the police, made arrests, of some people, which also led to some sort of protest and all of that. What would you say regarding this? Do you feel that we make arrests, but then we don't prosecute effectively so as for people to see that this will serve as enough deterrent for those who will be thinking of attacking or causing terror in the minds or in the face of people. What exactly is your assessment of this?
Well, you know, the issue of arrest is that of the police and the security agencies. And once that is done, then it's now switch over to the judiciary. So it is now the judiciary that will now prosecute, you know, and convict, you know, the arrested person, you know, based on evidences available to them. So I feel that in the case of Plateau State, some of the indigents, non-Fulanis, were arrested as part of the collaborators or part of the suspects. And I think that's what triggers the issue of demonstration by the indigents. You know, and to me, I think it's wrong, you know, for them to have done that. Because usually there are always collaborators, you know, insiders, you know, that will give a community or, you know, a place out to outsiders because of one gain or one reason or the other. So, but for now, they are still suspect until proven guilty. They should have allowed the course of law, you know, to take effects. And if they are innocent, they will be released. I mean, if there is no evidence, any concrete evidence against them, they will be released. But before the intelligence community, before the police, you know, and the military officers, before they pick somebody up, there must be, you know, a trace of evidence that they will rely on. Because the question will be that why is Mr. A arrested and Mr. B not arrested, or Mr. C not arrested? So something points to that Mr. A. They have a lot of ways to check, you know, some communications, mind you, at the background, you know, just prior to that incident, because there is no attack without communications. You know, if you go to the back end of the communication system, maybe a day or two, and look at all the traffic that is entering those particular areas that are attacked, the intelligence community can pick something, because you are going to see a rise in the flow of traffic, you know, just prior to, you know, the attack, because there will be some logistics, there will be some planning, there will be some you know, messages that they will be sending across on what to do and what to do as time is getting close to the attack. So the intelligence community, the security agencies, they have a way of checking, you know, all the incoming communications around that particular period and be able to zero down to a particular person to say, look, hey, you received 30 calls within 3 hours, or what is it? You know, and if they like, of course, they can go back to the call register and even play back, you know, and listen to what has been discussed. So I want to advise the community to just be patient with the security agencies. If they are not involved, they will be released. And if they're involved, they shouldn't be surprised, you know, that, you know, somebody who is an insider. Because
I am wondering how long these communities will have to be patient for when they see how their loved ones are being killed, their lives, property, livelihood is being destroyed. How long would you expect them to be patient for? That's a critical question I would like for you to address. But again, right, go ahead.
Yes, the issue is that there are arguments and counter-arguments. You can hear the Fulanis also saying that they've lost several people, you know, without anybody coming to their, you know, to their aid or to their to help them. Their cattle have been killed. So there are issues here whereby we need to ensure that there is social justice and there is equity, because some of these attacks are counter-attacks. You see a community attacked, then there's a counter-attack, then there's a counter-attack. So these are, that's why the cycle keeps repeating itself. So that's a critical
issue. That's a critical issue when you look at the underlying issues of reprisal attacks and then the matter of the ethnic underlinings and also the issues of resource control, talking about mineral, the things, talking mineral resources and perhaps farmlands and all of it that are being said to be part of what is fueling all of these activities. Are we really addressing the root causes of this crisis?
Yes. I think you've mentioned a very pertinent issue with respect to areas where traditionally we're having this crisis. In most cases, these areas are very rich. They are very rich in one solid minerals or the other, or even agricultural activities. So there are issues. Some people are, there's some school of thought that it is always intended attack, to displace the owners, the traditional owners of the land, so that they can, some other people can come in there and mine. So this is a factor, really, with respect to some of these insecurities, particularly in the north. And I am into mining, so I can say that, in some of the areas where I have my own concerns, this issue is reoccurring. Now, this boils down still to some of the security agencies, like the civil defense. I think they are specifically tackled with the responsibility of protecting one of their responsibility, apart from the economic infrastructures, also securing the mining resources. So I believe that if we have more men, that can be used to secure all these areas, it will help a lot, because there is no way you will evacuate people from their own traditional land only for some other people to come in and start mining, particularly areas where we have gold, gold deposit. Because I can tell you that the gold deposit on the schist belt, that span all the way from KB, Sokoto, KB, Zamfara down to Kwara, to Ilesha, in Oyo State, and Ondo, Oyo State, is more than enough to give us double of our what we just have in the national budget. Our national budget, I think, is just $25 billion thereabout. If we use the black market rate, it's about 25. If we use the official rate, it's about $25 billion, and the national revenue about $18 billion or $19 billion. This is a chicken change if we are able to harness the gold deposit in this country. Niger State and Zamfara State alone can give us this amount. So this is why the government has to look at these areas very critically, and come in fully to ensure that, apart from securing environments where we have a very large deposit of solid minerals, we can also invest heavily, in them, to enhance commercial mining of these minerals, to enhance the national revenue. I sat down to look at the budget, and I'm sorry, we are still poor. We're just thinking that we are big as a nation. If you look at Egypt, their budget is about $97 billion. If you look at South Africa, their national budget this year is about $132 billion, almost 6-7 times our budget. So
do you think that perhaps the government should perhaps begin to look at tinkering with the Constitution? We have the matter of the exclusive list and the concurrent list, allowing states to be able to explore these mineral resources and also look at how they can secure them, perhaps.
No, we don't need to tinker with the Constitution. At the moment, the state can. The state can. Even with respect to the oil resources that people are talking about, the resource control, the state can go into oil mining. Why? Because the Solid Mineral Acts of 2007, as amended, allows states to set up an entity, a state-owned company, to assess licensing of any mineral. In fact, it is most easiest for the state to do it. Because at the end of the day, one of the fundamental requirements is the consent of the landowner, before the license is given, or what we call the community development agreement. It's very easy for the state, to acquire this, because ab initio, the land itself is controlled by the governor, and through the governor to the local government chairman and the local chiefs, then the landowners. So what I will encourage all the states to do, because the major issue with respect to mining and the limitations are capital. State can easily access capital. Why the Chinese are in Nigeria now taking all over the solid mineral assets in this country is the fact that they have access to capital equipment. They bring in their dozers and excavators and drilling machines, and before you know it, they are operating. And they are making billions and billions of money out of us. Right. And this money is putting pressure on foreign exchange, because when they make this money, they go to Bureau de change it to dollars and export. So the state should look at the minerals within their own domain, put just 3-5 billion naira out, buy this heavy-duty equipment, partner with those that are interested in solid minerals within their state that knows what to do, and they go on production sharing. You produce, okay, give us 50%, you take 50% of the product, and a mine can employ more than 1,000 people, because it's highly capital intensive and also high employer of labor. So if they can do this, I can tell you that they may not even care about what they get from Abuja, because they can make a lot of money from it daily. So without necessarily tinkering with the Constitution, there is enough provision for them, to play as much as they want to play within the area of solid mineral exploitation within their state.
That's right. That's right. Commodore Ayuba, let me come to you. A lot of people have actually advocated for privatization of security. When you look at the strategy employed in driving home policies or achieving certain programs, they would say that the PPA thing usually works, PPP rather usually works. Some now said that there should be privatization of security. For instance, in what the United States has done in employing private security firms in some contexts, such as providing security for government facilities and engaging in overseas operations, etc. Do you feel that Nigeria should go these routes, in ensuring that they are able to deliver security for the Nigerian people?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ibrahim. I have been an advocate of unbundling security to the extent that there are some duties that can actually be outsourced to private military contractors on one hand, and private security on another hand. Yeah, why? Because we have thousands of veterans, hundreds of thousands of veterans who have served this country diligently with very, very, very deadly skills. Some of them with lethal skills that are yet to be bought back by the government by way of having security department allowance get paid to them. They can be formed into groups. And all these veterans exist within all our sphere of our geopolitical zones. Most of them are in their villages. Why do we allow them to rot away? We must begin to look at how we can put them together and then outsource some of these security functions, especially in areas where you key points, vulnerable points, so that you relieve the core arm of the military, the active servicemen, to only go and address areas of core needs. And this is one area that I think gladly we're entering the Armed Forces Remembrance Week. We should be able to look at better role for veterans and retirees and make them more, bring them more, capture them into the security network. And that is not happening right now. Only efforts have been made to motivate and maybe provide some palliatives. But this group of people can do private military contracting. Like you rightly said, the U.S. used them in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and some other of their operations. They don't use their regular servicemen. Even in the UN operations, they still bring back some of their retirees to work as military observers, some of them who have specialization in logistics, communication. All these people, the skills are still there. All you need to do is to freshen them up, and then it's better added up whatever little gains they make, added to their pension, will make them restive. Otherwise, most of them, out of frustration, could be recruited into this terror network because of the deadly skills that they still retain within themselves. And that will not be augur well for our national security system. So I support the idea that the private military contractors, private security operators, credible private security operators could also be engaged. And that is happening. Some ministries are hiring private securities, for instance. So that relieves the police from the job of going to guard or civil defense. And of course, there are some success factors around these areas. But there's need for some legislation to be made to tweak this and make it happen.
In carrying out this, in exploring this opportunity?
Yes, thank you very much. Every venture you go to has its own risk factor. So we are not the only country that is doing private military contracting or private security contracting. There are rules. There are MOUs need to be drawn out. Agreements must be reached, limiting lines, no-go areas, and all that. And of course, there's supposed to be a lot of profiling. And of course, understanding those who are behind these companies and ensure that they are patriotic people who can be monitored by the intelligence security agencies. So, if you are always one is afraid of going into a venture, then you never venture. Every venture has its own risk. Every business venture, even private ventures, even vacationing, holidaying, has its own risk attached to it. So we must be bold enough to go into these areas and allow things to happen. A lot has been said about mining and its opportunities. Security also has its own trillion-dollar economy. We have to do things differently and try to get as many retirees who are still willing and able to act strong enough to work to make their own quota. And I can assure that if this is done, you will realize that we will be able to achieve what the president's vision for the economy at the end of this year should be, and that is where I stand on this issue. Thank you.
Of porous borders and the matter of the infiltration of light and small arms and weapons into the country. There was a mop-up at some point, but we are still seeing quite a number of these weapons moving around the country. What more can we do to addressing this matter of the porosity of our borders as the infiltration of weapons into the country? Because we have seen also that some of these attacks are carried out by persons said to not be members of a particular community, but that they come out from outside the country to carry out these heinous attacks?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, there is intelligence that indicates that most of the bandits, a lot of them, comes in from Chad, from Niger Republic. In fact, they take it as a routine. They will come, make the money, and go. So, and there's a lot of infiltration of assault arms and rifles, because of the desert storm, that the crisis in Liberia and Morocco and all the North African nations, that led to a lot of arms, by militias group, which they now sell to make money. So the number one issue is the issue of national border surveillance. The Minister of Internal Affairs, the last Honorable Minister, actually engaged me in this area, and I provided an architecture for border surveillance, with respect to monitoring the entire borderline of the nation, with about 50 to 100 kilometers in and out, of the border across the entire nation. Unfortunately, the project could not take off before he left. So we need to do that, because the only way you can police the entire border is to use technology. The entry points across into the country is over 2,000. Entry points. In fact, in some, you can't even put a number to it, because there's no between us and Niger Republic. You can just walk across, and you are in Niger Republic, or walk across, you are in Chad. So you cannot really put a number. They can just ride their motorcycle and cross over. But without a surveillance system, there's little that the immigration and custom can do, because they can only monitor where they are. So we need to do this in order to monitor the movement of men and material across the border. Then one of the technology we can also use is an RFID technology that we can use to monitor the arms. Like the issue of assault arms, the number of private security personnel in Nigeria is over 2 million. If we go to Ministry of Internal Affairs, the private security men that they have licensed, they are over 2 million, carrying out one function or the other. And most of them, like Air Commander said, they have a lot of background experience in the military and in the security services of this country. Some of them are retirees that set up these agencies. I believe they can be very handy, because they already know the rules of engagement. They've been trained, on how to handle the rifle. What we just need to do, most of their limitation is that maybe they can only use a pump action. They can't use a AK-47 or higher versions of artilleries. So what we can do is to bring in modern artilleries with chipsets, that immediately reveal, is laced with the GPS, that revealed wherever the holder is. So you put in an RFID, the radio frequency identification chips, and the equipment can be monitored. So this monitoring, I believe there's an office under the office of the NSA now that is there's a committee that is set up under his office to monitor this arms proliferation across the country. So they can be saddled with that responsibility of monitoring the people that are using assault rifles. So we need to move from pump action, to higher, firearms, because the only power a bandit, the only power they have is the rifle they are holding. If we have your AK-47 and they have their own, if they are attacking me, it's a matter of who is the first to trigger. So I will not be afraid. If they say they are coming, I'll say, okay, you're welcome. All I need to do is to just stay overnight. Just open my eye for some days. So if those that have, offered themselves, professionally, to do this security job, let us equip them, commensurately with what these bandits are using. Some of them, they have RPG. When you see them, they are holding all sorts of terrible equipment that can reach somebody like 600 meters
Engineer Ahmed Rufai, because of our
meters
time.
away.
Engineer Ahmed Rufai, because of our time, let me take this question to Commodore Ayuba. Looking at the recent attacks in precisely Plateau State, the Nigerian military actually blamed the delay in the response to the terrain, talking about the topography, and then you'll be wondering how the military, based on the drilling that they had, the training that they have, they'll be, having to talk about, terrain, territory, and how to access communities and all of that. But then, does this not speak to the need, the exigency of having community policing, those who understand the terrain, to empower the states and local governments to ensure that they have their own community policing in order to have an effective way of fighting insecurity in the land?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good point. In every society, even if you go back to classics of the Second World War and some of the wars that have been waged along the West African region, you will find out that the locals play a lot of role in intelligence gathering, in monitoring, in reporting movements of troops. So even to the extent that the locals know all the nooks and crannies of their own environment. The mountains that we think that are so impregnable are playgrounds for some of the community children and youths. And so for you to deal with issues around that, you must engage the communities. Train them. I did mention earlier on that there will be need to get them trained in the art of early warning, reporting, put them in the web, and also create safe haven. Some of these high grounds provide safe haven, even away from the bandits. We're talking about the military's reporting difficult terrain. It is true that the communities are spread across the entire landscape of the plateau. The plateau is a very vast area, and when you report in an area, the easiest area for military to penetrate is the air assets. And recently there are issues about targeting. So the military will not want to commit its assets to go up there and then mistarget any longer, given what has recently happened. So you see, terrorism and insecurity is dynamic. And of course, every of the people who are actors playing this role monitor one another. They know where the military becomes vulnerable. The military shouldn't be riding motorcycles, for instance.
We'll have to wrap up this conversation now. Gentlemen, thank you. We must thank you, Commodore Abimbola Ayuba, retired, for your time, as well as Engineer Timasaniyu Ahmed Rufai for your time as well. We have run out of time and we need to wrap up this conversation now. Gentlemen, thank you once again for your contribution on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well, this is where we draw the